All right, hey, Scott Schrader here. And
Crashlet Collier.
all right, well, I was going to start off with recruiting, but I actually want to start off with where we left off kind of in our last show. And that was you. I don't even know if you had determined you were going to Notre Dame already then or not, but I want you to tell everybody what your first experience was like in South Bend, Indiana, going to see Notre Dame USC.
So I think announced it on the show that I was going. That's kind of when I kind of made it public. Also talked a bit about behind the caution tape earlier in the week that I'd confirmed I'd be going there. Got my
Okay.
ticket about a week prior to the game. So overall, I had a great experience. Flew in the morning of, got there about 3 hours before kickoff. And overall, just had a great time just seeing the tailgating. Stadium was definitely a little interesting considering there was the lightning and there was that whole chaos of was the game even going to kick off on time?
Yeah.
But then it did, and then they let us down to the seats. Then obviously, I just had a great time. I was in a full Notre Dame section, and generally people were, they were, poking fun at me and all that. But it was like it was good natured. It wasn't like anybody wanted my blood. The only time I maybe thought someone maybe would have killed me was as I was doing my reel, recapping the game as I'm signing off with the fight on. A couple guys like, "You suck, fight up," and it actually was like you could tell like it was hate. They weren't even just saying that in like the typical way Notre Dame fans were just doing the twos down and yelling "fight off." Like
Yeah.
it did not seem that way. Like
Yes.
I
How
felt that
clever.
once at Oregon when a couple fans saw me and they like were shouting like kind of insults in that same tone. So it was kind of that. But overall, I had a great time. Obviously, it was a bummer seeing the loss and just definitely, I'm still kind of in some ways struggling to process it, considering it could be the last time, or at least as of now, it's scheduled USC and
Yeah.
Notre Dame, barring obviously, hopefully they figure this out, get something on the schedule. Personally, I'd like to see the games played than they are. I get the complications of it, especially now them being in the Big Ten. But I do just kind of like the times they're set. You just go mid-October in South Bend, end of the year in LA. Like I just kind of like when they're played, and it just I think adds to the specialty of the rivalry that it's played at these unique times when traditionally you would be playing conference
Yeah.
opponents. And I think I get people have their disagreements. I know USC sees it differently. I know Notre Dame's trying to keep the status quo, but personally, I just kind of like that it's just unique in that way, and I think it just adds to what makes it so special.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I don't think most people really care when it's played. I do think they care where it's played. The whole Mexico City thing. I don't think
Absolutely
it's
not. That cannot happen. Like
yeah.
Netflix, get the hell out of here.
So that didn't make much sense to almost everyone except the people that are going to be collecting the revenue, right? And that's why we're going to flying 3 games to Chicago. It's all about money. And with USC now in the Big Ten, and you and I were kind of talking about this previous to starting the show off today. It's sure mid October, late November. It's the way the game has been played. It's kind of like if they change the Rose Bowl to January 3rd, which they have now in many cases. But as long as they can play the games, at both venues, that's a huge part of the lore. I know that we've mentioned that several times as well. But nowadays, and you can't use this year, and you can't use every year, but there are going to be years like next year where USC finishes the season, with like Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and just an insane like schedule of Big Ten games and put Notre Dame in there at the end of the year is just, and this is just in my opinion, just plain idiotic. So you have to look at the good and the bad, and I think it's easy enough to keep this rivalry going, and just have it in September. Why Notre Dame doesn't want it to be that way? Maybe it's because they play Stanford also in that window in the past, but now they're playing Stanford at the end of the year, so I don't even know why Notre Dame has any issues with the game being played in September. As far as the weather is concerned, the advantage goes to Notre Dame every single year, basically. It's going to rain there half the time. It's probably going to rain once every 10 games at the Coliseum, and it's going to be 70, 75 degrees. So, I just think that as a school that's not in a conference and doesn't have that type of a grind annually, it's just hard for me to take Notre Dame seriously with them not with them saying USC's afraid of continuing this series. They're not. They have a contract ready to sign. Sign it, Notre Dame, or shut the fuck up. That's just kind of how I look at it.
Well, Scott, you make valid points, but I think the thing is the narrative is in Notre Dame's favor because Lincoln Riley opened his mouth and even made it a suggestion that winning a national championship and playing Notre Dame are mutually exclusive. The moment Riley opened his mouth, USC had already lost the
Yeah,
argument. It's like, and I mean, obviously, there's been stuff saying, "Oh, Notre Dame's done this stuff before." Like, I mean, Ryan Karch was talking about in his Times of Troy newsletter, and I get where he's coming from, especially being a Michigan alum with how that went down. But seeing stuff on Twitter, I didn't deep dive into it completely, but I get that, I think there's a bit more to it than that. Obviously, there's a lot to it than this, but still, it just the whole idea is just like if you can just have the narrative on your side, especially it's kind of one of those things where whoever speaks first loses. And because USC did that in the case of Lincoln Riley, it's just USC is not going to be in a favorable position with the public. And it's
yeah.
like, and just that because just that public perception. If Marcus Freeman had opened his mouth first, this would be a whole different ballgame for USC. USC would have much more power in these negotiations because Freeman would have been stupid enough to do that. But because it was
Nah,
Riley,
coaches don't make the schedules.
maybe.
So
But just the suggestion. At least that's how the public perceives it. So
yeah, I'm
Scott.
actually seeing that the
I'm
huh?
just looking at how it is from how the public perceives it. This is the general average fan who might not factor in like, oh, how much is the administration involved in the scheduling? They just look at what they hear from the coaches, who is the by far the most visible person on a college football team, especially at the Power Four level.
Sure, but I actually don't think that the public perception now it favors Notre Dame any longer. Anyway, I think there was a time where USC had just had 1 year to play the game. They extended it for 1 year. Now they've got a different proposal that includes multiple years, just changing the dates of the games. And I honestly believe that flipped the switch on Notre Dame from a public perception. That's just my opinion based off of what I've seen and what I'm hearing. So, either way, there's going to be people who are going to disagree and agree on it. I just know that the reason why a Chad Bowden and a Jen Cohen would want the game played in September are valid reasons. It's not like they're just making this stuff up because they want to control when everything happens. But it is a valid reason to put the game in September. So anyway, I'm among the people that would really be disappointed if the series did not continue.
Oh, I would too, for sure, Scott. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I might be taking a bit more hardline stance on when I think the game should be played.
Sure.
That said, it needs to stay. It needs to continue for sure, and definitely needs to stay at these two iconic venues it is played at. Don't put it at Allegiant Stadium. Don't go put it in Mexico and have to, make everyone, go through customs to go through the game. Just play it at these two great venues that are like really terrific, and I'm really grateful I got that experience
Yeah.
to go to South Bend.
It is. It's a great place to go, and it's a place that you usually remember. I've been to a bunch of games there where USC has won, so that kind of changes. I'm sure if the only times you ever went to South Bend, Indiana, to a Notre Dame game and they never won a game, I'm sure that changes how the experience a little bit. But anyway, so on to recruiting here. I do believe that series is going to continue, though. I know there's back and forth going, but I just find it hard to believe that Notre Dame's not going to give in at some point. Very brief on recruiting. I'm heading from Chicago to Florida tomorrow. Friday, I will be seeing Luke Wafel play. They're playing the First Academy in Orlando, Florida. The following day, I'll drive a couple of hours to Bradenton to go to IMG Academy and see Kenai Pepe, Brett Koleje, Asani Gales, and a bunch of other guys that USC is pursuing at IMG Academy. So that's kind of what we have on the recruiting. And then after I get done with the IMG Academy game, on Sunday, I will fly to Dallas and I will go see Booby Feaster. I will go see Jamion Winfield, Jake Johnson, and KJ Ford. I'll see him at Duncanville. He'll be at USC in about a month. So those are kind of like the Texas guys, and then we're on our way to Nebraska. So let's move on to the Notre Dame game that was played this year. Just just your thoughts on this game. It just kind of felt like deja vu all over again in a lot of ways.
I think for sure. I mean, I think there's definitely D line definitely show. Obviously, I thought Jeremiah Love just had a great game. You got to give him a ton of credit there.
Yeah.
It was definitely frustrating for sure. But then obviously, I think you just saw that Notre Dame's just a much better team than Michigan. And I think we saw King Miller come back to earth a little bit in the fact that he struggled. Obviously, you don't have Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders. I think a lot of people are high on King Miller. I still think he deserves a scholarship for sure after what he did
Yes.
against Michigan. But just that's that reality. It was definitely a bit of a reality check for this team that all right, we're facing a better opponent. Like we kind of need some of our top guys back. But then really the things that really frustrated is the fact that even despite all that, USC kept themselves in the game. I thought obviously Jaden Miles didn't have his best game, but still I thought a pretty decent game. And I like that they utilized Tanuk Hines as a third receiving option. Like I thought that was really, smart to have that instead of just going with Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane. Mixed up a little bit, especially against a better team, like arguably the best team that USC has played this year. But also, I think I did not get some of those play calls at the end, like the trick play to Makai Lemon. Like, I get he was nervous in that situation when the play fell apart. But in that situation, you just got to just let yourself be tackled and go down with the ball. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to find somebody. Just go down with the ball, take the loss. And then
Yep.
some of those fourth down calls and the interceptions were certainly frustrating play calls on the part of Lincoln Riley.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting game from a discussion perspective. Um, people can talk about the play calls, which the play calls are what happens at the end of a game, right? You're watching that, or there might be a big turnover, and that's what people remember the most. But as far as the play calling, the reason USC had a chance to win the game was because of play calling too. But the bottom line is, USC just got owned in the trenches, and when you're letting a guy run for 228 yards, 300 plus yards as a team rushing yardage, you got problems. And when you're rushing for 66 yards yourself as a team, that just kind of like shows where the difference is in being able to play a perfect game versus being able to play an average game to still win it. Notre Dame clearly did not play a great football game on Saturday, right? They lose that football game, they're roasting Marcus Freeman. Why was he passing the ball when they were just running right through USC? So there was a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of blame to go around when he loses a football game, especially when it's winnable. Between Jacoby Lane dropping a touchdown pass, a 10-yard touchdown pass, Makai Lemon, the kickoff return right after USC had taken the lead. That's the kind of stuff USC is not good enough to overcome. Now, the turnovers, I mean, the last turnover, does that really matter? The last turnover, the last interception really doesn't matter. But, another poor decision by Jaden Mayava. But it comes down to you can just see where USC still has work to do in the trenches. Is it coaching? Is it they need better players? Maybe it's a combination of both. But it's hard for me to imagine the USC defensive line not being significantly better when you start moving in some of the true freshmen now, the redshirt freshmen and sophomores coming back next year. So it was just another game that was kind of like a lot of others. I put something on our message board that USC, the Lincoln Riley, in all of his losses at Oklahoma and USC, I think 7 of his 10 losses that were less than a touchdown have happened at USC. So it comes back to the discussion is what is keeping USC from winning those close games versus losing them? And I've had former players say you would think just by dumb luck that you would win a game or two. And I just look at Notre Dame was kind of the dumb luck game, and USC just outdumbed them. So I don't know what your thoughts are on where they need to go going forward. I agree with you. They're not going to play an opponent. I don't think that is necessarily going to be able to run the ball like Notre Dame did, but Oregon is going to be able to run the ball. You're going to have to stop the run for sure. And Dante Moore's a good quarterback. So I'm looking at if they can win 4 out of their last 5 games, I think USC fans would consider that a good season.
For sure. I think it's definitely, though, still frustrating when it's a game like that where you just see your defense get sliced up like that. And the thing is that concerns me a little bit going into these games is what Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, especially with the run game, are able to do to that D line. I think is definitely a lot of great. and I don't say this lightly, great film material for all five of USC's upcoming opponents, who all have winning records except for UCLA, but even the Bruins have shown some life under Tim Skipper. So I think even though I think USC is favored and should win four out of these five, and hopefully can find a way to upset Oregon, I don't think any of these games are left as given, Scott, because of just all these teams have shown the ability to just find ways to get wins, and most except for probably UCLA are probably going to be bowl eligible. I think if you look at Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, obviously, and then UCLA, if things continue to break right. I mean, hard to see it with Indiana and Ohio State on the schedule right now, but
Yes.
just with how things are going, it's none of these games are given, and I think you and teams just are probably going to really just study that Notre Dame film and see, all right, what did they do? Obviously, none of them probably have guys like, except for Oregon, have the talent that Notre Dame has, but they'll still be able to just use and see, all right, how can we exploit their weaknesses, especially along that D line, which I thought for the until this game had generally been pretty solid because mainly had been the passing game that had gotten USC beaten in their weakened secondary. So I'm really curious, like how what are teams going to do to exploit that just USC's defense in general, and how does Danton Lynn just manage to figure out what's going on and what's going on, what is going wrong, and how do I correct this and make these good adjustments as the leader of this defense?
Yeah. Hey, well, they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play good defense. You go on the road. That's that alone. History in the last few years has shown USC is they've not struggled in every road game, but there hasn't been a road game where you've gone, God, they really just like waxed that team, right? So you're going to go to Nebraska. Yeah, what are they, 5-2 like USC?
Yeah,
I
five
think
and two.
Northwestern's 5-2. I think Iowa is 5-2. UCLA is whatever they are. I'm not sure UCLA's beaten a team with a winning record yet, but yeah, congratulations on the 3 wins. And so that's a rivalry game. And we've seen with USC UCLA, even when it was clear that USC was the team that should win by 14 plus points, they've managed to lose to UCLA. And it's worked the other way too, where UCLA's lost to USC. So yeah, you can't take any of the games for granted. I don't think USC will. I don't sense that USC is taking these teams for granted. So yeah, they're gonna have to play well. I just don't think you're gonna find anything like Jeremiah Love going forward. And that alone will probably, make things a little bit easier defensively. But you're gonna get to some of these games and maybe the secondary is having another poor night. And I think a lot of what's going on with USC, to be honest with you, all comes back to the secondary. There's just not a lot of confidence in let those guys go man on man and feel good about it.
For sure, I absolutely agree that the secondary probably has just been really just I think when you have those bad games, it definitely has to hit you confidence wise. We're just like once you just have one bad game, you can just put you in a tough cycle of just like you just lose your confidence, and then that alone can cause you to play worse. And I mean, I've never really played football much. I played one season of flag football in sixth grade, but just as someone who played volleyball all the way through high school, it's just like you have a couple bad games, and then you're just not seeing the court as much. And when you do, you kind of missing before you know you're back on the bench. So it can definitely stick with you for sure as both a player and a position group.
Yeah, it comes down to if you're hesitant, when the confidence is gone, you're a little hesitant and unsure of yourself. Yeah, it's amazing what a difference that makes. So yeah, so looking forward to going to Nebraska. Fan base there is amazing. I don't think anybody's going to walk away from the Nebraska game feeling like that somebody was coming after their head. This is a rare place to where they cheer the winning team, even if it's not their own, after a game. So there's a lot of respect going on at Nebraska. Very football knowledgeable fans, just salt of the earth, great people. Are you able to go to that game?
We'll see. Probably not, but if anything
Yeah,
changes, I'll definitely let you know. I mean, obviously, with the Huskers coming here last year, I did actually check out a couple of the Husker tailgates. Super welcoming people, great
yeah,
fans. You can tell they're passionate about Nebraska, so that makes it cool. And just obviously, they're just super passionate about just everything University of Nebraska beyond just football. Like they're really into it, but especially football. Like just especially just their history and everything. Like they're one of those programs where just like you want them to be good because it just makes college football in general better, especially because of
yep,
the great fan base they have.
yep. It really is. So it makes for a great experience. They got 2 home games, Northwestern and Iowa. So Yeah, I think there were a lot of people who were thinking the floor for USC was 8-4 this year. Not sure there's going to be many USC fans that are going to be happy with that. I'm not saying they're going to be happy with 9-3, but I think the off season will be a good off season if USC can get that 9-3 or better mark. But man, it's a long way to go before they hit either one of those. So anyway, all right. Well, hey, that was a good wrapping up here at the about the Notre Dame game. We're gonna have a lot more to talk about with recruiting, probably in the upcoming weeks. Um, the USC is gonna have to win in order to keep some momentum going with the recruiting. So there were some local kids that were at Notre Dame that saw Notre Dame fans show up and cheer on that team in didn't it rain? I sat in the press box for the second half. It rained almost the entire second half, didn't it?
Yeah, I was like that first half. I was surprised. I mean, it wasn't actually as cold as everyone was making it seem, but I was
Beautiful.
completely drenched by the end of it. Like I was having trouble like getting the buttons on my phone to work to do my video, and I just like
Yeah.
literally acknowledged like completely rain drenched here. I think is what I
Yeah.
said, like straight up. So, but yeah, I think yeah, you're talking about obviously, recruits at Notre Dame like DeVay Williams was really impressed with the Irish. Obviously, I think he's a guy that USC's hoping to keep at least keep in contention for it, but it seems like he's really leaning towards Notre Dame. So I think that is certainly a way that the loss did hurt USC, especially with one potential key recruit.
Yeah. You go to a game like that and stuff goes on. Whether Notre Dame is going to get Duvay Williams or not, I think we're a long way off from knowing that. But it's just there was another kid, Marcus Vaca too, class of 2028, potentially could reclassify. Another good visit for him. I think there were about 10 or so Southern California, at least USC recruits that were at the game. So they're going to have to take care of their own business here as the season goes on. So look forward to talking about the Nebraska game in a couple of weeks. Um, I'm not sure. I think we'll probably take a break unless we might be able to put a show together where I talk about, heading to IMG Academy and talk about what we heard from Luke Wafel and Kenai Pepe and Brett Colajay and Asani Gales. But we'll probably take a week off and resume this after the Nebraska game.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, glad you got to Notre Dame. Had a good experience there, other than the loss.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a lot to look forward to potentially, and it's one of those situations with USC where it's just like 1 week at a time because it's just impossible to know what team's going to show up 1 week to the next. So
Well, I think that's what's interesting about the Big Ten this year, Scott. Is just how much parity there is. So I think
yeah,
it's just kind of obviously when it's your own team, you're definitely bummed. But in general, when you just watch a league in general, seeing them just kind of just beat each other up makes for good entertainment. I gotta say.
yeah, no doubt. All right, well, Crash, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
All right, see you in a couple weeks, Scott. Fight
All
on.
right, bye now.